Deputy. Can't tell you how good it feels to be back in Falls End. I'm glad you're looking to do more here. We need you.
Hey there, Brandon Jones here, first-person shooter fan, open-world fanatic, and fan of Far Cry 4, and so I was excited to head up to San Francisco to play a bit of Far Cry 5. I recently got to sit down with Daniel Bloodworth and talk about a demo he played of Far Cry 5, and I think the demo that I played took place a little bit after that, so it's after you take back Falls End, which is a hub that you're going to return to a lot, and even though there was this massive area that I could go to, that massive area was just part of one other set of massive areas that makes up all of Far Cry 5. So it's a big map. There were a lot of options of what I could do. And so because I didn't get a chance to do absolutely everything, I'd rather do an unscripted take. I just wrote down some notes here, and we're going to go back through my footage and show you basically my journey of this recent demo of Far Cry 5. So I start off in Falls End. I have an assault rifle, a bow and arrow, a silenced pistol, grenades, throwing knives, and Molotov cocktails. I mostly use the assault rifle and bow and arrow, and some grenades every now and then. I head into the Spread Eagle and get a mission from Mary May, who you might recognize from trailers, and she tells me to go steal her dad's truck back, which is called the Widowmaker.
Don't think we could have taken back Falls End without everything you've been doing. Most folk take one look at Eden's Gate and turn the other way. The ones that don't get taught a hard lesson.
There are a bunch of vehicles in Falls End, but I grab an ATV, and I head over and immediately get run over by Eden's Gate, or the Peggies, as they're referred to, the cultists that are in this area, which are not messing around. They're all over the place. Throughout the entire demo, there were not many places I could drive to that I wouldn't eventually drive past a patrol or, people that were just by the side of the road. And so Peggies are all over the place. Cultists are, littering this countryside. And so I learned a lesson the hard way. Think I can maybe outrun them. And not only do they shoot me a bunch from behind, but they run me off the road and run me over. So my first death. But I finally make it to where the Widowmaker is being held out, attempt to be stealthy a little bit with the bow and arrow, end up pissing everybody off. After I clear the zone, I get attacked by a wolf that I unfortunately have to take down. Wild animals are very common in previous Far Cry games. You obviously need materials from them to upgrade your various inventories. But this is my first encounter with a wild animal in the playthrough. I also took out a turkey later on when I got to an airfield, and I think I got attacked by a honey badger or something, but reminded me of not only these materials that you can get from them, but specific hunting missions. And so while I did run into wild animals throughout my playthrough, I never specifically went out with the intent to hunt them. While I'm there, I find a tower that houses a secret location where I get some loot and some materials. And even though I did climb this tower and just, confession, I do enjoy climbing towers. I do enjoy that mechanic in open world games. That is something that the team said that they're going to get away from with Far Cry 5. A lot of the devices that are going to open up new areas of the map are just going to be people that give you missions or people that tell you about certain areas. But there are going to be secret locations like this, and in it, there was a beehive that I'm not quite sure how I should have dealt with the situation. Maybe I should have lit it on fire in some way, but I tried to knock a beehive away and piss off a bunch of bees that eventually took me out, that were protecting a safe that I couldn't open because I didn't have a key. But I did get up the tower that safe was in and found a secret location, so I'm looking forward to finding those in areas, and I didn't get to visit a ton of locations, maybe about half a dozen. Well, hopefully some of the locations that I haven't been to will have more fun secrets like this to find. I hop in the Widowmaker and drive it back to Falls End. The Widowmaker has mounted machine guns, which the dialogue reminds me of, and I use that to take out a lot of the roadblocks along the way, along with just, ramming cars off the road. By the time I finally get back to Falls End, it is night, and I deliver the car back to Mary May, who says her father would have been proud, and says that I can take out the Widowmaker anytime I want. And that just kind of adds to the vehicles and more, I would imagine hopefully down the road there are other missions that give me more fun vehicles like this. So definitely would be fun to take that on later missions, but I wanted to, usually when I traveled around, I just kind of grabbed the nearest car next to me. I start to get harassed by a helicopter, and the devs remind me that some of the guns have alternate ammo. And so I swap 2 piercing rounds and take out the pilot and then watch the helicopter crash. So it's easy to switch ammo types too. You just bring up the weapon wheel and press a button. The next mission I do is one that I know that Bloodworth did, and so I also wanted to do to experience the mission for myself, but also because I knew it's how you gain access to a plane. You go and meet a character named Nick Wray, who lives at an airport, and there are other runways along the map that you can go pick up planes as well. And I have to liberate a cult outpost. I'm assuming the first of many, and I try to take down a couple of these down the road. If you've played Far Cry games before, you're definitely familiar with these. So they have alarms that you want to see if you can come in and stealth as much as you can, at least get to these alarms, because when those go off, they keep sending in reinforcements as long as those alarms are going off. And so it can be a very tense situation going into these cult outposts, but this is where Nick's plane is. And so you go in, get the plane, and take off, and just to make sure the plane is working properly, he makes you fly through some hoops, and then you land it and then defend Nick's house. Again, you might be familiar with this if you watched the preview coverage that we did where I was chatting with Daniel Bloodworth about his playthrough of Far Cry 5. I take out some cultists, and I steal their truck, but get hunted down by some other cultists, so I respawn at Nick's, grab a truck there, and head on over to Pastor Jerome Jeffries' church, who you might recognize from trailers. Jerome Jeffries needs me to rescue some hostages, and I managed to not screw it up. I go in as stealthily as possible, I rescue all of the hostages, and I get singed a little bit when a house catches on fire, and I'm used to things catching on fire in Far Cry games before, but that's usually like trees and foliage and outdoor environments. I think this might be the first time I've ever been inside of a house when it catches on fire. And so that's something that I'm looking forward to experimenting with in the game action-wise, that being a threat, but also that being a way that you can take out targets. Immediately after rescuing the hostages, a side mission pops up to take out a convoy. I get the first half on a bridge, and then steal an ATV, and then take out the second half. I then meet a gun trader with a dog that's just walking around on the road, and I'm familiar with these from previous Far Cry games, just having merchants out when you're out on foot, and you're not, in a vehicle and you want to slow down and buy a little ammo or buy some materials. And so it was interesting seeing this as not only a person that was aware of the cultists and wanted to take them out, but somebody who was just out hunting themselves, and so who said, if I ever find any animal bits, I can trade them in for more stuff. I try to liberate another outpost. I fail, but I do light a helicopter on fire, and the pilot has to jump out. I also call in a few bombing runs from Nick, and this is something that I didn't get to experiment with a lot. There was the dog on the map that we could go get. I unfortunately did not make it that far north, but I did assign Nick as my partner on a mission and call in, bombing runs from Nick. And so all of the other people that you can assign as buddies to follow you on a mission all have different abilities. On the way to try to get the dog by going up north, I hire some backup, and along the way I encounter some cultists. Somehow in the skirmish I'm drugged, and I pass out, and I wake up in a story mission called The Cleansing. I'm helping Jerome Jeffries rescue some hostages, and it's a very straight path that just kind of winds up into a mountain. I have to climb the mountain trail, get to a helicopter evacuation point, and then defend that from the top. And then after that, I make it out, and I can shoot some people from the helicopter when we're flying out. So that was the last mission, and when I was done with that, they came in and said, we were just letting you finish that mission, but you actually ran out the clock while you were in the middle of that story mission, and so that concluded my time with Far Cry 5. I also got to play some co-op. I actually got to play co-op with Pamela Horton, which was a lot of fun, but we couldn't record the co-op. The co-op was fun. It was just kind of crazy. I think we tried to take a couple of other outposts and managed to make them happen, but we were also kind of goofing around because it's tricky to gauge, how much attention they're going to put on one person versus the other. And so it was interesting to kind of draw their attention to either side of their base as we were, popping in from east and west at the same time. Obviously, with vehicles, you can not only hire AI, but you can also, get into a car and have somebody up on the gun or have somebody poking their head out of a window and shooting people. So co-op is in the game. You can play the entire game co-op just like you could Far Cry 4. And Far Cry 5 was a lot of fun. Like I said, I wanted to do this off script because of how random the nature of the demo was, about how free it was. Like I said, like missions would pop up. I would just do unexpected things when I was driving around, fighting animals here or there, and just generally getting into trouble. And what I like is how much there was to do in just a small amount of space. And so it's going to be really interesting going into the other zones, seeing how the environment changes. One thing I didn't get into too much is as you complete more missions, as you finish more in the story, you generally piss off the cultists more and more, and so they start to retaliate and start to hunt you down. And so there's always something next. There was always another thing to do, and that was really exciting. Just like I said, for a fan of open world games, for a fan of the stuff that Ubisoft does, and for a big fan of Far Cry 4, going into Far Cry 5, it's gonna be really interesting to see the story. I'm curious to see more of the characters and kind of how much they. What are the right characters to bring in on missions, and how important are these characters? How interesting is their arc going to be as we, as it felt good in just the span of an hour and a half, taking back some of these zones. Is it going to be that much fun going over the whole course of the entire game? I don't know. So that comes out next year, and hopefully we'll get another chance to play Far Cry 5 before it comes out. But if not, that was my take, and I'm looking forward to playing it when it does. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Man, my heart's beating 1,000,000 times a minute. God damn, Deputy. You swung in there and saved our asses. Who knows what these bastards were gonna do to us?